Hey, what's up? This is BunnyMuffins. If you're not Diamond, you want to be following this Rebel guide because it's pretty much a step-by-step instruction on how to play Rebels, and I recently posted a quick leveling guide on Twitter, but I want to show you guys how to do this in action. I tried this strategy 5 times, and it's super simple, and I did this on purpose. I got first place 4 out of those 5 times, so you definitely want to check this out. Super easy, anyone can do this, and it'll probably work anywhere outside of Diamond Elo. First, let's jump into the composition. So we're going to start off with the final build, which is Ziggs, Yasuo, Sona, Malphite or Master Yi or Yasuo. You could take any of these guys out, really. You just run 6 Rebels with Gangplank carry, and you could add like a Misfortune here as well to get Blaster for Misfortune. And then the items we want, you generally want to itemize Aurelion Sol the most. You want Morellonomicon, Seraph's is really good, Demolitionist Spatula is really good down here, that way you don't need to run Ziggs. Another item that works, say you don't get Spatula, is Hat. Anything with AP, maybe even like an Ionic Spark is really good. Or defensive items such as Dragon Claw, pretty much they all work. On Gangplank, you want a Guardian Angel and then any ability power item on him. Misfortune itemization doesn't really matter too much, so you just throw any leftover items on her. And then for Jinx, she is your mid-game carry. Jinx is your mid-game carry, so you probably want to put a couple of Giantslayers on her. Those are generally what I favored the most, and you could also put a Quicksilver Sash on her for her defensive item. Now that we know what the items are, we want to go over how to play the early game. So essentially what the item holder is Ziggs. What you do is you just put all the items on Ziggs if you end up finding Rebels in the early game. I'm running like 3 Rebels on levels 3 and 4, perfectly fine thing to do. Let's say you have Master Yi, Ziggs, and Malphite. That's something that's like pretty standard. You just set them up like this. Doesn't really matter where they are as long as they are together because they get the Rebel buff, which gives them all a shield and gives them bonus damage. And you could build Giantslayer, you could build Morellonomicon on him, you could throw Seraphs on Ziggs. All these items work, but once you get level 2 Jinx, you'd sell Ziggs, put the Giantslayer on her, put the temporary items on someone else, and then wait until you get Aurelion Sol. If you don't get Jinx, you could hold these items on Ziggs until you get Aurelion, and then just go ahead and sell him and swap all the items over. One thing you do need to keep in mind is that you do need Ziggs for Demolitionist if you don't have the Demolitionist charge. The reason being is because with Gangplank, it's just such a super strong synergy because that means Gangplank's going to stun everyone he hits later in the game. One interesting thing to note with playing Rebels is that you don't actually have to play Rebels in the mid game to even go for them in the late game. Pretty much any early game start would do. Space Pirates are really good. You could go with Graves and then either like a Jace or Darius carry in the mid game. You could go something like Blasters and transition into Jinx. Or you could play something like Cybernetics and just have each one of these guys be your item holder early in the game. Lucian can use all the mana items. Vi can use some of the tanky items, and Fiora can use some of the attack speed items if you have them early. So there are a lot of different directions to go into. I'm going to be just covering how to do the Rebel transition because that one is the most straightforward. So you generally have Ziggs and Malphite, hopefully level 2 sometime around stage 2. You put in a Sona there or Yasuo or Master Yi, whoever you find. And then from here, I like running 2 Brawlers at level 4. And then after that, maybe adding in like a couple of Space Pirates or some Blasters after that, or just anything that you could get to 2-star. And that's pretty much it for the early game for Rebels. You really don't want to roll or level at all unless you have over 50 gold, in which case you would just spend that gold into leveling. And the reason behind this is that if we look at the chance to get certain champions, the only thing that matters in this composition is Aurelion Sol and Gangplank, and to get those champions you need to hit level 8. Therefore, you always want to do some sort of fast 8 strategy. And the way to do that is, whenever you have above 50 gold, first of all, never re-roll from stages 1 through the end of stage 3, unless you're really close to getting a lot of different upgrades, but even then, you might want to hold off on it. And then if you are above 50 gold, just spend all your experience in leveling up down to 50 gold or every single round. Then, depending on your health during stage 4, you'd want to level up to level 8 and roll down, if possible, 40 to 50 gold at level 8 in order to find all of your champions, which include the critical ones at least are Aurelion Sol, Jinx, Gangplank, and Misfortune over here. You don't really need Misfortune, you could just add her in much later because you could just run like 2 Brawlers before you complete Misfortune, but the critical ones are Gangplank and Aurelion Sol. So now that we know the basics of how to play this composition, let's hop into the game I played, where I do the same exact strategy. We'll just hop right into the replay and take a look. So in the beginning carousel, you want to go for either tier or rod. Luckily, we had a lot of options for that there. But tier or rod, best early game items because you can just stack them all on Ziggs. If I get a Luden's Echo, I'm just going to build it right away because that allows me to win streak. And then I'll forsake going Hat and Seraphs instead. So I have a weaker late game in terms of itemization, but I have a stronger late game in terms of having more gold because I was able to win streak. So in stage 1-3 here, I'm just going to pick up Kha'Zix and Ziggs. Probably pick up the Cybernetics as well. I could go Graves at this point, and if I do end up getting gold, of course I'll pick him up. But here I'm not too committed to getting Rebels yet. I just potentially could play anything. Right now I'm looking at Cybernetics. And again, you don't have to play Rebels in the early to mid game to play them late game. All right, so here we get a bunch of different Rebels, so it's kind of looking like a Rebel game at this point from my point of view. All I'm missing is Sona or Yasuo in order to get the shield in the beginning of the game, which is a huge buff for me. But since we're not making any interest, I'm just going to pick everything up here, or as many things as I can. So we got an early Nico's help. You never really want that, but you got to do what you got to do sometimes. So since I do have the 3 Rebels now, I find that this is actually a decent time to commit to the composition. Morello is very good. It's not that good on Ziggs, but it's very good in this metagame because a lot of healings out there with Celestial Djinns or people with Bloodthirster like Shaco. There's just so much healing. A lot of Warmogs on like Vanguards or Protectors. So this item is pretty much usable in every composition if you don't have like a red buff. But since I'm likely going to try to go Rebels this game, I might as well just build the Morellonomicon right away because I'm not really building anything else with those items. So here I get pretty fortunate. I find the Ziggs, I find the Yasuo. I'm not really sure who's stronger here, either Sona or Yasuo. I think Sona's slightly stronger because she's stronger in games where fewer units are up, because then her heal gets a lot more value. So I think that's why I ended up playing her over Malphite in this round. But perhaps Malphite might be stronger than Yasuo. I don't really know, but I just sell here for interest because I'm thinking I could just commit to this composition. I generally just try to lose streak early game if I don't win the first 2 rounds, but we'll see what happens here. Since I did get the upgrade on Ziggs, I might be strong enough to start a win streak. So nothing much to do here. I probably just want to add in the next Malphite or just pick up Karma for Mystic. I think both plays are fine. There's not too much of a difference between their power levels in my opinion. Mystic isn't really that strong early because most of the damage I think is physical early game because no one has upgraded spells yet. Also here I just do a quick scout in order to find out what compositions people are going. I think this game only one person contested Aurelion with me, which gave me even more incentive to force this composition. For Carousel, I probably want to pick up Tier. Fortunately, those were all taken, so I could start building a Jinx item, either by grabbing a sword or a bow. I don't really like relying fully on Aurelion Sol because if I don't hit him level 2, the composition is quite weak, so here I just pick up the 3-cost sword. Now we're on stage 2-5. I pick up the Vi here. That's very, very fortunate for me because now I could put in Brawlers, and Vi's just like a pretty solid unit overall because she CCs a lot of people. And as a 3-cost, that's like, you can't really ask for more than that. I go ahead and equip the sword on Ziggs as well, just because I do have a small win streak, so I want to keep that up. And since I'm selling Ziggs later anyways, you might as well just drop the sword on him. Now we're on 2-6. We really want to win this round. It could be argued that I should level up here to keep my streak going into the neutral round. I'm actually not quite sure what the best play is here. I think running the Space Pirates might be a mistake. I definitely want to have either Rebels or Brawler in just to try to get the win more than trying to get the gold from the Space Pirate. But I do eventually just level up here and put in Space Pirates, but I really should have put Vi in instead of Jace there. One of the reasons why I leveled up was because I still had enough gold to make interest. So I didn't feel like it was costing me too much. I potentially risk losing interest next round, but if I win this round, I gain 7 gold total. 3 from the win streak for 1 round, 3 from the win streak in the second round, and 1 gold for winning against that opponent. We pick up another Vi here. These Vi's are getting expensive, but she's a very critical mid-game unit in my opinion. Well, not super critical, but she's very useful, and if I'm getting her for free, I'm going to go ahead and take her. There are a lot of other options. As I said before, you could either go like 2 Blasters before you hit 6 Rebels or 2 Brawlers. You could even go 4 Brawlers if you manage to hit them and just play like level 1 Cho'Gath and maybe like a level 2 Blitzcrank if you hit them early. So we get a spatula here, which is pretty huge for us. We get to build Demolitionist spatula, and that's probably one of the best items on Aurelion Sol after Morellonomicon, so it's going to be a no-brainer for us to build this. I do make a mistake here. I think I want to put this item on Vi because I'm going to sell her because she's not part of my late game composition, but I make the grave mistake of putting it on Graves, which does end up costing me quite a few games. And the reason why it's bad on him was I thought Graves targets people randomly, but if you actually read his ability, he targets the person with the highest attack speed. So that's actually going to be the person most likely in the back line. So I'm not going to get area of effect stuns that I thought I would have, whereas Vi would have done that for me. As you notice here, he stuns Caitlyn, which essentially accomplishes nothing for me. And that also killed my win streak, so that costed me a lot of gold there, that simple mistake. So you always gotta be critical of yourself and realize that sometimes even the tiniest mistakes make a monumental difference, because I lost 3 gold that round, and I lose a chance for 3 gold this round, so potentially it could end up costing me like 6 to 20 gold. But yeah, when people tell you that small decisions don't matter, you can show them this exact game and you'll realize how much of a difference 10 of these mistakes can make in a single game. As usual, I'm scouting again. I'm just trying to see what compositions other people are going. But it doesn't really seem like I'm going to be that contested this game, so I'm going to keep forcing Rebels. If I didn't have Ziggs 2, I'd have to think about it and maybe pivot into something else, but since I'm at 50 gold and I have Ziggs 2, it's like there's not too much else I can go here, which goes to show how strong this composition is if you can just force it and be pretty healthy doing that as well. So here I'm thinking about leveling up on stage 3-3. It's only costing me 1 gold. So I think that's why I end up doing it. I do get the Brawler buff on Vi, that's why I end up putting her in. And I realize how bad Demolitionist Spatula is on Graves, because in the last round he didn't get any area of effect stuns off, so I really just want to swap that item off of him, even though he is 2-star. Graves is really just going to be a tank for me. I'm not really using him for any specific synergy, so Vi with the extra Vi that I put in with the Brawler buff is pretty much just as tanky as any other 2-star, but the fact that I get to switch the item is huge. So now on this carousel, we have the sword as an item, so we definitely want to finish a Guardian Angel here. Unfortunately, nothing's really there, so I just go ahead and take the Jinx because she's another Rebel unit, and I don't mind having the gloves on her because I could turn that into a Quicksilver Sash or a Trap Claw. Or even worst case scenario, an Infinity Edge. While Infinity Edge isn't the best item on her, I'd much rather have like a Giantslayer or a red buff. It's kind of like a good enough situation. Also, I'm missing Master Yi here, and Master Yi is pretty easy to find since he's just a 3 cost, so I have 2 different outs and I don't have to roll to find Jinx in order to complete my Rebel composition at 6 Rebels. One thing to note about Jinx, you probably shouldn't even play her at this stage in the game because level 1 Jinx without any items is absolutely terrible. I do think I end up making that mistake one time this game where I play her over a different Rebel. Learn from this and don't repeat that mistake in your games. So now we're able to complete Vi. Pretty fortunate for us because we didn't really roll too much for her and she is a 3-cost unit. Here's when I make the mistake of playing Jinx. I probably should have just played literally anything else, would have been fine. Probably just second Sona and just take out Ezreal, maybe play like a random Fizz or a Shen instead, because Jinx really is quite useless. Luckily, we end up winning that round. I know Jinx is leading the damage chart, but like my team would have won regardless of whether she popped off or not. That's the thing about her being level 1. She wins more in games you already won, but doesn't really do anything in games where you're going to lose. So from the Infiltrator camp, we get the Chain Vest, which is huge for us. And again, we're really only looking for Master Yi here, but we can build the Guardian Angel on Ziggs most likely and save that for Gangplank. So if I do see an extra Ziggs during this stage, I would definitely pick him up, but you don't need to do that if you have the Demolitionist Spatula. Normally, if you don't have the Demolitionist Spatula, you'll want to find a new Ziggs by the time you get Gangplank to keep that synergy alive, but since we have the Spatula, we don't need to do that right now. As you guys can see here, we do have one other person going Rebel, so that's pretty good for us considering it's the best composition by far in the game, and one other person contesting it is not the end of the world at all. So I just pick up Karma here because maybe I could run Mystics instead. The power level difference is very minimal, but hopefully I take out the Jinxes here. Okay, yeah, I did end up taking one of them out, but I really should have just taken both of them out and run Mystics this round. So as usual, I'm just going to spend my gold pre-leveling. You could use it to hold on to units as well, but it's not too important since I don't really need any of these other guys. End up picking up the Vi here. Always look for temporary substitutions that you can play like just for 1 or 2 rounds if they're not costing you any interest, which is the case here. Again, Vi gets the Brawler buff, so she's probably going to be tankier than anything else I put in here. Vi is also just a solid unit because she has an area of effect crowd control. So I'm not quite sure why I didn't build Guardian Angel yet, but here we probably want to finish the glove item on Jinx. Maybe I could go for a bow to build a Giantslayer on her, and maybe that's why I held up building Guardian Angel. But now, since I'm more experienced with this composition, I realize how important Guardian Angel is on Gangplank. So you definitely just want to be building that right away. It's just way too strong of an item. But here I just end up taking the bow with the potential for getting Giantslayer on Jinx. So I could level up here. It's only costing me 1 gold, and luckily we're able to find the Aurelion Sol really quickly. Some people might watch this replay and say this is really lucky, but we really didn't need to hit Aurelion at this stage in the game. We could have hit Jinx, we could have hit Master Yi for 6 Rebels. There are a lot of different outs here. We could have hit Gangplank as well. But obviously it's still really good that we hit Aurelion Sol, but I wouldn't write this game off as like getting super lucky, and that's the sole reason why we did well this game. I do miss position here. I should probably move the Sona next to the Jinx and the not the Sona, the Yasuo next to the Jinx and Aurelion Sol, because I probably want them getting the biggest damage buffs on Rebel, but definitely keep Ziggs in the middle since he's my item holder. Unfortunately, I can't build any of the items yet, so I hold off on building either Guardian Angel or Giantslayer because 1, I'm already very strong compared to the lobby, and 2, I don't really know which item I want to commit to yet. So here I end up getting the Jinx, which is huge for me. Unfortunately, since she has no items and I don't have a new Ziggs to replace Ziggs, I can't put any items on her, so it's a little awkward. We haven't seen any Master Yis yet, and he's a pretty critical unit if you want to hit 6 Rebels in an easy fashion. I also can't sell Ziggs to swap the Morellonomicon on Aurelion Sol, but that's okay too. So nothing really much to buy here on the Raptor rounds. Here I'm thinking I'm at 74 life. A lot of people would roll down to 0, maybe on stage 4 or 5, to try to hit Aurelion Sol too, but I'm not really in a rush since I'm at 74 health. When you're at this point in the game, you always want to use your health as a resource to get more gold. And if I go to level 9, I pretty much guarantee that I hit every legendary that I could ever ask for. And if no one's really challenging my team, there's no reason for me to roll down just for the sake of rolling down. And that's a mistake that a lot of players make, and that might cost you. You might get second place in those games, but it might cost you a lot of first places that you could have gotten. So here we get the Gangplank, which is pretty big, but again, we still need to find a Rebel, and I rolled down until I see one. And luckily I was able to hit it in a couple of rolls and then swap the items over. So here you definitely want to build Guardian Angel on Gangplank, swap the items over to Aurelion Sol just because they're so strong. We just didn't hit this item combination quite yet, so we couldn't do this right away. And I definitely think I want to build Giantslayer on Jinx, QSS her, and then also build Frozen Heart on Aurelion Sol. I could have waited before building Frozen Heart because maybe I could have gotten like super perfect items on him, but sometimes it's just better to play everything right away. Because stage 5 is when damage starts happening, so you definitely want to try to lower the health bars of your opponents. So now we're at 98 gold. We could level up here, but I don't really see a point since we're winning every game. I feel like with Jinx, with QSS and Giantslayer, that's enough to carry us through a couple of more rounds before we really need to find some legendary upgrades. I do make the mistake here. I should probably move my Yasuo back 1 square in order to give Jinx 1 additional damage buff. Also, if you guys didn't know, always do the mana glitch with your items. Any tier item, you can give your champion double the mana for 1 round. The way to do it is to put the tier on the champion first and then follow it up by completing the item right as the game starts. That way, there's like this weird bug where they start with 20 mana from the tier and then completing the item on them during the round gives them an additional 20 mana. Not too sure if they're ever going to remove this since it's been around for quite a while, but in case you didn't know of that trick, it's very helpful and can win a lot of games. Now, since I'm able to just passively level to 9, I might as well roll a tiny bit. I could stay around 50, but I think here I just wanted to roll down to 40 just to see if I hit anything. Luckily I do, so I just end up completing him. Again, at level 9, it's super easy to find your upgrades, and with only 1 other person going Rebels, it isn't too tricky of a situation to get everything. So the mystic that I want here is actually Lulu. Since I completed Aurelion Sol level 2, I don't really care about Jinx carry anymore. That's why I don't really care about Karma too much. Sona's not going to be that great because everyone has Morellonomicon or red buff, so I don't really want to... Sorry, Soraka does a heal to everyone, so I don't really want her because a lot of people have healing debuffs, especially the guys in 1st and 3rd place who I'll probably face against in the top 3. Another thing to keep in mind when you're trying to win the game is scout whoever's in first and third. You don't necessarily have to scout the entire lobby, but just make sure you do everything in your power to equip your team strongest against the people you're going to be competing against for first and second place. So since my Aurelion Sol has full items, I want to find a Gangplank item here. I'm thinking either Bramble Vest or Luden's Echo would be really good. I could also put Bramble Vest on a different character if I really want to get perfect Gangplank items. I do think I end up putting Bramble Vest onto Malphite here, just because there were quite a few critical strike users, and I could always just, since Gangplank has Guardian Angel, he's pretty much always gonna pop off anyways. Here we just continue to be patient with our money. We're at 74 health, so until someone really challenges me or knocks me down to, let's say, like 50 health, there's no real reason for me to roll. If you look at everyone else, they all have high health too, but their mistake is that they spent their gold already. If we look at the person at 76 health and 52 health, they have like pretty much no gold, so they're not going to win the game, and they're not playing to win the game if they're doing that, whereas I am in this case. Because I recognize that I am high rolling, I'm getting a bunch of upgrades, but I don't need to spend gold to finish like my Sona, my Soraka, or like my Ziggs, or even my Gangplank. So one thing people fail to do is like they just automatically roll at certain stages in the game, and it's just very suboptimal. They think that, oh, it's like this stage, I normally have this many upgrades, so let me try to emulate that here. But you don't really need to do that. You just need to be strong relative to your lobby, not necessarily the same strength from game to game. I could pick up Thresh here, but I don't really think he's that strong of a unit. I'd rather run Misfortune to get Blaster buff for my Jinx, and Misfortune's just like a much better unit in general. So we do end up getting another Nico's help here, so I definitely want to try to get either level 3 Jinx, or maybe even level 3 Aurelion Sol or Gangplank here, or just complete both my Gangplank and Misfortune. And that's why you see me rolling down a little bit here. Again, I don't really care too much about Thresh, but I'm really just looking to see what I can high roll to completely dominate this game. Fortunately for me, I do find the second Aurelion Sol 2-star, but without items, it's not that great. I probably should have just kept Misfortune in so that Jinx can still act as a secondary carry. Another reason why we're able to find all these legendaries is because we leveled up to 9 really early. We didn't really spend too much gold because we recognized our team was strong compared to the rest of the lobby, and a lot of players fail to do that. So even though I am getting pretty lucky with hitting the other Aurelion Sols, it's like not necessarily out of the question since I held on to my gold longer than other players would have. I'm not really going to roll to 0 or even roll to like 20 unless I'm below 50 health, because there's just really not much point to. Even if I lose 2 in a row, I could even hold off like rolling just because I have so much health. I'd much rather guarantee that I get the strongest team by the time of the end game. That's all that really matters if you're trying to get first place. I think I just go with the strategy of roll down to 40 in order to try to get my Gangplank to. I also want to roll down to make sure that no one noticed that I was going for Aurelion Sol 3, because if they buy, there are only 10 legendaries in the pool, so if they end up buying 2 of them, I can't complete a Sol 3. So that's one reason why I probably rolled down here, was just to try to beat everyone to stop them from denying me. Could I have done this earlier? Maybe, but I don't really know the answer of when the optimal time to do that is. Because I still want to win the game. ASOL 3 isn't really going to be like my end-all win condition. I could just run like 2 Gangplanks instead. Because Gangplank's pretty good with just like 1 item, whereas Aurelion needs like a couple of them to be super strong. So here, out of this carousel on 6-4, I want the Zephyr. That's the best late game item. Unfortunately, it's taken, but luckily there's a QSS, which is going to be really strong on Gangplank, because that means he's always going to cast his ultimate. So here we just roll down to get the Lulu. Again, I want Lulu because she's the strongest Mystic, and I don't really need Soraka because like I think these other 2 players have like a red buff or a Morello, so it's not going to be that useful against them. So now, since this is the last round, I already beat this guy very handedly before, so now I'm just rolling down for fun, trying to get Gangplank 3. Pretty much forsaking everything else, just to try to see if I could do it, but unfortunately, we don't end up seeing him here, but we got the first place. We got the Aurelion Sol 3, so there's not really too much that I can complain about here. I even passed on the Lulu there because I just wanted to to hit the Gangplank. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys learned a lot about how to play Rebels. You definitely want to abuse this in the next week because this composition is definitely going to get nerfed. It uses all the strongest units in the game: Aurelion Sol, Gangplank, and Misfortune. And again, item priority, Morello on Aurelion and Guardian Angel on Gangplank. Other than that, you don't really need anything too specific. Maybe some red buffs on Jinx, maybe a Giantslayer on Jinx for your mid game. But yeah, you don't really need to roll too much because of all the damage changes that Riot implemented into the game. You don't take much damage until stage 5 and 6. So it's okay to lose entire stages as long as you keep a streak and keep your econ high and are able to hit everything at level 8. But yeah, that's it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this Aurelion Sol 3-star game, and definitely look out for future guides where I'll go more in depth on how to do certain leveling strategies.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe, and of course smash that like button. Each like is an LP I gain before the next video.